Alright guys, just a quickie today and some more of the F350. Funny how the flavour of the month rotates between the models. Anyway, the X-Car 45 amp ESC from Hobby King is great as far as the ESC goes. In crawler mode it works a treat, but its built-in BEC is only just good enough for smaller trucks with a single servo. On the CC01 for example it manages just fine. On a high lift though, with its steering servo and shift servo running, and now with the lights as well, the poor little BEC is struggling. The inductor, basically a coil of wire, doesn't seem to be correctly spec'd. Under heavy load it gets extremely hot, which can change its value, leading to the BEC losing control. Not good. But then, the ESC is all of £7, so adding an external UBEC isn't really a problem. I've got one of these hobby wing jobbies available from all good eBays for about £5. Can switch between 5 and 6 volt outputs, and apparently it's good for 3 amps constant. Will do the job nicely. Okay, installing. The input side needs to connect to your main battery. Usually you would piggyback the wires on the battery connector on your ESC, but of course I'm not quite doing that. I've already got an extra connector wired up. It's a BEC connector, which is slightly dodgy as it's carrying battery voltage and not a BEC voltage, but it'll do the job. Now I could just splice in the pre-wired connector, but that's not ideal. As the BEC has some nice clear heat shrink, we can clearly see the wires just solder to some pads on the back. Just need to cut the heat shrink, peel it back, and see that they've used some nice conformal coating over the joints. Nice to see, but it does mean we need to scrape it off before we can change the wires. Attack it with a knife, then scrape it with something soft like a bamboo cocktail stick. Luckily, this stuff comes away fairly easily. Now we can simply remove the wires, clip, strip and tin the new ones, and solder them into place. And there we have it. Almost looks factory. It's just that little flap, but that's on the bottom. No one will ever see it. Going to stick it in with a bit of servo tape. Just going to put a square of it on the back. I'm going to run the system at 6 volts, so the jumper goes on in that position. On the radio tray there's a perfect spot just behind the gearbox, almost made for it. The input side can now plug into the battery connector, after making sure the battery isn't connected of course. There's no switch in the line now, so if the battery's connected the system is on. It's not ideal, but it's a system that works. I might try and find somewhere to put a box with a couple of switches if it turns out to be a nuisance. We'll have to give it a go and see. The output lead can connect to a spare slot in your receiver. If you haven't got one, and you do have an RC Mojo light controller, you can happily plug it into one of the spare servo channel headers. Failing that, you could just use a Y lead. Right, we're nearly there. One more thing to do. We now have 2 power supplies running the radio. The one in the ESC and the one in the UBEC. Easiest way to fix that is to pull the red wire from the ESC servo connector. Just lift the plastic tab and pull the spill out. This is still carrying 5 or 6 volts, so it needs to be insulated. The easiest thing to do is use a little bit of heat shrink, fold the wire back on itself, run the heat shrink over the top and shrink it. Then it can just plug back into your receiver or light controller. Time for a quick test I think. No switches now, so just carefully plug the battery in, keeping tight hold of both ends so we can unplug it just in case the magic smoke starts to come out. And well, there we go, it's all running. I've got one more thing I want to fit today. Last week, running it at night, I found it really needed more light. So I dug out the old roll bar and lights, got all the chrome off, substituted the broken outer lights with some spare smaller ones I had, and painted the whole lot black. I was going to try and film some of the wiring, but wow, it was really fiddly without having the camera in the way, so with the camera it would have been just about impossible. Now, I'm going to fit the roll bar to the bed. 4 screws, job done. We've got a long length of wire, as it wants to run all the way to the back, then to the light controller, so the bed can hinge up without the wiring getting in the way. Use some paired off ribbon cable, as the nice 2-core wire I've got on order still hasn't turned up. Anyway, the plug will plug into the aux1 pins on the light controller, simple stuff. The cab can now back on. Think I need some more cable management in there as it's getting a bit busy. The camera can go to a more dramatic angle. Nice. Transmitter on so we can plug the battery in, roll it forward a bit to arm the light controller, and we have side lights, headlights, and roll bar lights. Nice! Should be able to see through walls with that, hey? That's about it for today. Hope you enjoyed. If so, don't forget that like button, it's always appreciated. And why not click subscribe? After all, it's free. Bye guys.